Paul, thank you so much for the time. How you doing today?
How are you? Thank you for having me, bud.
I'm doing great. This is a whirlwind trip for you here in Austin.
Yeah.
A little bit of stand-up, some podcasts, because this is not only the live music capital of the South, but also a true-on podcast gauntlet as well. Are you enjoying yourself so far?
Yeah, man. Austin has become, I never thought Austin, Texas, when I first started doing comedy in New York City, you know, you always heard like New York, of course, Los Angeles, of course. I never thought Austin, Texas. And then I would say somewhere like 12 years ago or something, someone's like, oh yeah, Austin's growing. Austin's doing this. And then the South by, and I did a stand-up thing at Esther's Follies. I did something there for the South by, I hosted a show at the South by Southwest Comedy Festival that they did comedy. And here I am now. I come to this city once a year. You got to now. Yeah. It's almost like New York, Austin, Los Angeles is now the path. But yeah, no, having a great time here. The people are great. The food is incredible. You know, the brisket ends, the burnt ends.
Oh, the burnt ends.
The burnt ends, dude. If that's cooked right, unbelievable. So yeah, no, I'm having a really good time here.
So you've already gotten barbecue then?
Not this trip, but here I have. Yeah. I had La Barbecue. Yeah. Which is incredible.
Just got a Michelin star.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Yeah. We were at the South by Festival, and me and my good buddy, Dave Kimwitz, rest his soul, unfortunately, but we were here for that. And we waited 45, 50 minutes at La Barbecue for the truck. Yeah. And when you get there with the tray, just because of the wait, they just throw a piece of meat on, like before you order, just to wet your beak. And we saw like there was a bunch of people there, and then there was a famous chef, David Chang. Is it?
Oh yeah, yeah.
David Chang was there, and all of a sudden I look and I see a guy with Jordans on. It was Russell Simmons, and I'm going like these people like they knew where the barbecue was, but La Barbecue kind of ruined it other places for me. Yeah. So but now that you're telling me they got a Michelin star, that makes sense.
Well, there was a picture that was floating around social media a couple years ago, and it was a barbecue place in Brooklyn that was Texas style barbecue, and the price was like $40 for a very small amount of barbecue on the tray. And so of course Texans, we love to take our shots at New York, and New York loves to take its shots at Texas sometimes, but we were having fun with the fact that was what was looked at as a really good barbecue place up north.
Yeah, it's like if I was told to get Texas pizza, you know, and I'm sure there probably is.
There is, but for me as somebody who loves food, I would have to think very highly of the pizza to tell you, coming from New York, to get pizza here or to go get a good Italian-style sub, let's say.
Right. Like, I'm not going to be like, dude, if you like barbecue here in Texas, come to Manhattan. You'd be like, you know, but yeah, I mean, listen, I think every place that's like developing like this, you probably have good Italian here. Or some places, I'm sure.
The Italian's getting
better.
I still have a little bit of a gripe with the Italian scene. We do have good pizza for sure. But Austin is a burgeoning food scene now. It's something you couldn't say 15, 20 years ago. But much like with the stand-up comedy, as more people continue to come to this place and trying to bring some of the cool elements from where they came from into Austin, it just makes the overall city better. People like to complain because it is less mom and pop oriented now. And I get that. The whole Keep Austin Weird moniker. It's less weird now the more corporatized it gets, but that's inevitable with the cool place that it's going to grow like that. You just got to make sure that, and I think Matthew McConaughey said this a long time ago, that whatever noise, whatever garbage you're bringing from that other place, don't bring that here. That's what you're trying to escape. Don't make that a part of that new abode, whether it's Austin or anywhere else.
Yeah. It's funny because I used to go on stage here and say like, Austin, what did I say? Austin doesn't feel like Texas, though. I said it almost feels like its gay cousin that it doesn't want to claim. like it's like Austin is like they're going to show up on Thanksgiving and Christmas, and you know they're like, all right, well that's Austin, you know. Yeah. But it's cool, and I will say this, man. And every major city has this problem. But the homeless is getting better. I've noticed a little bit. Because, like, I was here, I would say even like a year ago or 2 years ago, and COVID was still kind of lingering. And, dude, it was like I just saw people strung out with their dogs on the street. I saw a homeless guy ask for something, and multiple people said no, and he just he jumped in front of a truck. But luckily, it's like he didn't get hit. Like, the van just stopped, and he just literally was like, hit me. And I was like, dude, this place it's getting a little better.
It is, thankfully. I think part of that is that the voters of Austin, progressive Austin, mind you, were given a choice of whether to overturn the homeless camping allowance that had been put in place essentially just before COVID. And progressive Austin is like, no, this isn't good for anybody. This is not good for tax-paying citizens. It's not good for the individuals who are having to live on the street. So the government, needs to come out with the better solution here. And I think also, to be blunt, Joe Rogan's club going in on Dirty 6th Street has forced them to pay more attention to what's happening around there as well.
I think so. I was at Joe's club last night. Shout out to the comedy mothership. Amazing club, and the amount of staff that's employed there, the amount of people that are making money working there, it's amazing. And I did notice that on that street, which was a little kind of shady, it's better. I performed on that street months before Rogan's Club opened at the Vulcan.
Yeah.
And the night I performed, 2 doors down, there was a bike gang shooting and 13 people got shot. And I got to my hotel room a couple hours before that, but I was performing 2 doors down from that. And I already see like a difference where it's just like, I think things are getting better. I think the comedy mothership is obviously helping out.
Yeah.
And no, for sure. But, all cities have it.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see Austin kind of cleaning it up a little bit.
Well, things went really upside down in a lot of places at the start of COVID and for a couple of years afterwards. New York wasn't immune to that. Do you feel like New York is really starting that bounce back phase now?
I think a little bit. I would say it's definitely slowly bouncing back. I don't know how to say this without, because I'm really not a political guy.
Yeah.
I'm not a political guy at all.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I'm a registered independent, and I vote for, I've put in multiple elections. I've did a write-in ballot for Eli Manning, and that's the truth. That's the guy, because that's just a man I could get behind.
So I guess that means you're for Eli Manning into the Hall of Fame.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah. But no, I just think that a lot of cities that got too progressive, I think what happens is things got too progressive where now it's like, criminals are kind of people too. And it's like, yeah, but they're also criminals. They are people too, but they're criminals. And then what made the city was the no cash bail, where it's like people can like commit a crime at 2:00 and then are back on the street at 7:00. I don't care where you stand politically. That's just wrong. So I think that started to happen to cities. And I think now people are going, okay, let's kind of reel this back. But if cities like New York, Los Angeles, Austin, Texas, and other major cities, Chicago, if it can like start to clean up, dude, that's when everybody's going to go out. That's when people are going to spend money. That's when the economy thrives. But I love how I'm talking about this, and I tell jokes for a living. Sometimes in strip malls, and I'm sitting here saying what's going to fix the major cities in our country.
Well, look, I'm like you. I'm a political bastard. I don't have a team necessarily. I'm a mercenary, I guess.
You're for logic?
I'm for logic, yeah. I don't necessarily write in anybody for the presidential ballot, but I see the value in voting in local and maybe statewide elections, but I look at the presidential election as patriotism for people who are bad at math. I know you want to think your vote matters. Ultimately, your individual vote doesn't matter in a presidential election. In 99.9999% of presidential elections. But I think that you were onto something with the overreach for power that was occurring in progressive cities in the early 2020s. And it is starting to swing back the other way now. I do still hear hilarious stories from time to time from New Yorkers who are like, oh, New York's going to bounce back. It always does. And I agree with that as much as it's going to bounce back, the situation in the subways is a complete disaster right now.
Oh, dude. If you know anything about me, I've been there's no.
Oh, you can cuss, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, like the absolute shit show that is the subway system. And, I have friends that have moved. My buddy who opens for me, Tyler Horvath, funny young comic, he moved from Chicago. And, I said, buddy, I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad you're performing in New York. You and your girl live in Brooklyn. I said, be careful at night on the subway, man. Just be careful but now there's more police. And now, I think the memo is out where it's just like, and I think you made a really good point. I really do. I think it was just so much power and that people just want them. And the progression thing got because that was the narrative.
Yeah.
When something is the narrative, people ease up, but it's like, we're talking about crime here.
Right.
Like there's certain things we're talking about people being harmed here.
Yeah, look, there is a sort of humanity that comes into wanting to make sure that you're doing best by those who are struggling the most, whether it's for addiction issues or mental illness or whatever the issue is that has created that situation. But a complete hands-off approach is not the right way to go about things.
And I have friends that are police officers. When police officers are telling me, Paul, they're telling us to stand down.
Yeah.
We have no power and the morale is down. Do you know how many police officers retired? How many police officers were like, you know what? Nah, people are just coming up to me saying they hate me and that I'm a piece of shit and I want to kill people and that I'm racist. You know what? I did my 20 years. Instead of doing 30 or 40, which I wanted to do, I'm just going to do my 20 and get my retirement and do something else. And that's a sad thing.
Yeah, all right, let's lighten it up a little bit now. Let's talk a little abortion. No, let's talk a little bit about your new stand-up special, the reason why you're here in Austin to help promote Reasonable Man. It's available on YouTube right now through your YouTube page.
That's right, my YouTube channel.
And man, it's been a rousing success so far in the month or so that it's been out. How good does it feel to have this so well received? Yeah,
I guess, you know, I knew that night, you know, with my manager there and people that I really trust and myself and the work that I put in, I knew that it was a great set. Thank God it's doing well, knock on wood. I knew, but you don't know how it's going to be received. And I put up my own money for this one. Like we were talking before, you know, I did a Comedy Central before, I did a Netflix. This one, I was like, you know what? I'm in a blessed situation to pay for myself, and I've never really exercised the YouTube thing. And I'm like, my YouTube channel sucks. I'm not using it really. I do put clips here and there, but what would happen if I did it the right way? And I'm like, well, I'm going to do it the right way with this special, and we're going to really launch it off like that. And it's been a month. It's been amazing. The best reviews that I've gotten from fans and peers. The comments are amazing. The clips are doing well. And it was nerve-wracking though, because everything was on me. I was telling you, marketing was on me, everything. So I had to wear all these hats. And I'm going, I kind of liked when somebody else took the ball, but now that I'm seeing what it is, I've learned a lot, and I think it was the right move.
Well, I want to ask you about that, because doing hard stuff is important to not only challenge yourself, but because there's so many lessons that can be learned along the way. You're obviously still in the midst of it. You were telling me what your travel schedule has been in the last month as you're trying to get the word out on this and still doing the day/weekend job, which is stand-up comedy. What is something that you've learned trying to make sure to take care of everything yourself along with your team, of course?
That's a great question. I think what I've learned is that you have to prioritize what needs to be done first. Like you have to really go, okay, a special's coming out. What do we, and kind of like prioritize the groundwork of like but I have to talk to a marketing team and tell them what I kind of want. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute, a trailer, which obviously, you know, Netflix and Comedy Central back did for me. Now I'm like, oh, I have to choose what's going to go in the trailer. I have to hire somebody for the trailer. I have to figure out what's going to intrigue people to watch it. But that process let me learn that I kind of was on the right track with my, so it makes you a better, what this process did is it made me a better business person. It made me understand what to look for and how to do things the right way. Were mistakes made? I'll find out. We're only a month in. I'm sure it wasn't perfect.
Inevitably, there's always mistakes.
There's going to be mistakes, but I feel like I did talk to somebody that really knows. Comedian Ari Shaffir is very, very, like good with YouTube and knowing it. So I talked to him. Pick people's brains that have done it before you. That's definitely something that I've learned, and that's advice I would take. Pick somebody's brain. If they did something, if you want to make a movie by yourself and you know somebody that made a movie, sit down with them, have a cup of coffee, be like, hey man, what is that? What was that like? And if they're a good friend, they'll kind of do it. So I kind of learned, how to promote it a little bit and take the chance. A lot of great people gave me advice. Andrew Schultz gave me advice. Ari Shaffir gave me advice, people like that. And I was just like, okay, you know what? We're going to do this. And I'll tell you the mistakes I made in 6 months, but that's what I learned is talking to people that have done it before you and just making sure that you don't panic.
Yeah.
Okay. Everyone's going to be scared and nervous. Everybody, it's like when I obviously don't want to compare this to having a child, but when my son was born, I was a feature act comedian, not making money. I'm going, can I do this? I don't know. And then things happen and you figure it out. It's the same thing with this, but I think having done 2 specials before, I'm like, okay, I didn't realize the hats that I have to wear, and it is a little frustrating. But I learned a lot, and I asked a lot of questions, and I think I did it good. So things are just going to work out. for better or worse, they'll work out.
Yeah, of course. And obviously Ari had to go through this process with Jew a couple years ago.
Yeah.
God, what a great special that turned out to be. And you talk about being a feature when your son was first born. He's the older of 2 children that you have. We may get more into parenthood in just a second.
Sure.
In preparing for this conversation, I was listening to some other interviews and conversations that you've had on other podcasts and shows. And I think it may have actually been Rogan's podcast where you talked about how at that point in time you had been in comedy for a little bit more than 20 years, but you admitted that you were working your ass off for 15 years and really not getting any response from anyone, which is maybe acceptable up to a certain point, but at a certain point it becomes the opposite of imposter syndrome. And I think you put it killing in front of no one or something along those lines.
Oh, no, I remember somebody said it to me. Somebody was like, I don't know who it was. It might have been, it was Killing in Obscurity.
Killing in Obscurity, yeah.
And what it is that, somebody said nobody who was it? Adrienne Appalucci's made a good point too, because me and her kind of came up around the same time. It's like, nobody wants you until kind of everybody does. And it was like this thing where I had to and don't get me wrong, I'm glad I did. I'm glad it took me longer to kind of make people go, oh man, Virzi's funny. But people always thought I was funny.
Yeah.
But as far as recognition, as far as getting into festivals, as far as like being on a different level, I would kill and go, what's going on? I'd be, oh, dude, you're funny. I'll put you on the show. And then they would put me on the show. But then it was just like I would go home and be like, all right, like what's going on? And then all of a sudden you just, things just, but I also have to be realistic, Trey. Maybe I needed to maybe I was getting laughs and stuff, but it's going to happen when it's going to happen. And maybe I just had to get so undeniably better that it was just like, all right, well, that's, but yeah, 14, 15 years. I did my first album at like 14 years. I got to the Montreal Comedy Festival, in 2000, Just for Laughs, which doesn't exist anymore, sadly. But Just for Laughs, like the biggest comedy festival in the world. I did that. My first one was 13. I did it in 13, 14, 17, and then, and that was great. But then that's when things started to move. But if you want to be great and you want to be good at this, it's not going to happen overnight, I don't think. I mean, it's very rare.
Well, what do they say luck actually is? Luck is where preparation meets opportunity. And I think that being forced to wait like that and continuing to get better will help you, if and when it ultimately happens, to not only appreciate it a little bit more, but to continue working hard too. Because people talk about the importance of failure in achieving success. And look, failure is important. Don't get me wrong. It is more important than success in a lot of ways. It is important to understand how to handle yourself in success also. Whereas with failure, you got to pick yourself up off the ground. You got to learn the necessary lessons.
Yeah.
Success, you can, there is a sort of indifference that can come into play because you're enjoying the fruits of your labor a little bit too much. What's funny? I know you're a golfer. Everybody loves to label the next Tiger Woods, and Scottie Scheffler may actually be that now, but every good player that's come along, every good young player, they call the next Tiger Woods. It's like, guys, the cart is so far in front of the horse right now. This guy is just starting to win, and I guarantee you he's going to do what most people do, and that's enjoy the fruits of his labor a little bit, versus Tiger Woods, who is going out there for hours-long sessions at the driving range and training like a Navy SEAL and basically breaking his body down in an effort to maintain that level of excellence.
Yeah, like Jordan Spieth, when he was on he won like 2 majors, and they're like, this is it. It's like Tiger won 15 majors. Like it's a chill out with that. But no, I mean, listen, like I said, there are very few anomalies where you just get into comedy and all of a sudden you're Richard Pryor early. That doesn't happen. I think 2 things that I'm really grateful for. I think that it made me better, and great comedians in this business said to me, like, it's going to be a little longer with you, but when, people are going to see, and when you have the experience, you're just ready for it because you've done it, you're ready for it, and you're just a better comedian. That's number 1. Number 2, and I don't want to get too heavy religious, God, but I really believe somebody was looking out for me. God was looking out for me, because I think that if I would have had everything early, I think it could have been detrimental to somebody like me that would have, oh yeah, let's have some drinks. Oh yeah, come on. Yeah, I'm good. And I think there is something to be said. I have some friends that are very young in this business and that got things in this business young. And, you've seen like some shit that happens to child stars, or, not that I would have been a child star because I started doing stand-up at 21, but if things happen that early, man, that's a dangerous road. And I think that I could have had trouble. I think that I would have been the guy if all these networks just rolled out the red carpet for me early. I could see myself staying at parties too long. I could see myself drinking. So I think God was looking out for me, and I was able to settle down and have a wife and a family and 2 kids. And I really feel everything happens for a reason, and I feel like I'm right where I need to be at the right time, if I'm being honest with you.
Well, and a great example to point to with what you're just referencing there is what has happened to the NBA over the last 20 to 25 years. I know you're a big Knicks fan. We may get into your Knicks fandom here in just a little bit.
Yeah.
But the NBA trapped itself by ensuring that guys who at first were coming straight out of high school, but then were just spending a single year in college and then going to the pros, oftentimes these kids are being drafted on potential versus the actuality of where they were as basketball players. Throw on top of that the fact that all of a sudden they have millions of dollars at their disposal. It derailed a lot of careers before they ever really got going.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like, plus you're on campus, you're getting the tests. You're not taking. They're not in the classroom taking the. I know guys I have friends that went to D1 schools, and they're like, no, the star basketball players are in their room playing PlayStation, and they kind of know what test is, and like they're just sitting there chilling out. And then you go to the NBA with this entitlement and stuff like that. You know what I think about too? It's kind of an example, but you notice what the Green Bay Packers do? Have you noticed what the Green Bay Packers do? The Green Bay Packers would have a quarterback, and they would draft a quarterback, and the quarterback they drafted, you know what he did? He sat.
Yeah.
They would sit for 2 to 3 years with a clipboard and learn. And look what happened with Aaron Rodgers. And now look what happened with Jordan Love. There's something to be said about that because you're in it. You're more of a professional because you're in those meetings for years without snapping, but you're in the practice snapping the ball. You're in the meetings with the guys listening. You have the headset, listen to the game. So when you go into that system, you're a vet almost. You're kind of a vet. And I mean, I know stand-up is a little different. You got to kind of be in there with stand-up. But the example I'm trying to make is like being like really ready. I just think, lines you up for success more.
But to your point, when you're just getting started in stand-up and start getting good enough to get paid, you're not necessarily headlining. You're going on the road with a headliner, and you're either doing maybe 5 or 10 minutes, or maybe you're that feature who's doing closer to 30 or 45, but you're trying to stretch that material out to where you can eventually be that starting quarterback. Patrick Mahomes is another great example of that. He didn't play for the better part of his first year in Kansas City.
Right.
Now, he was the starter year 2, and the rest is sadly history for the rest of football fans, but he's another guy who benefited from just getting to sit back and watch and pick the brain of somebody who had found success at that level with Alex Smith.
Yeah, and I think Eli Manning's success, a lot of it came from Kurt Warner. People don't remember Kurt Warner. Kurt Warner was the Giants quarterback for a lot of that year, for I think the first 5, 6, or 7 games.
I'd forgotten about that.
And Kurt Warner's a guy with experience, a Super Bowl, and now Eli is this young kid who comes in and he's learning from Kurt Warner. And then when he goes in, and Eli's a smart guy. I mean, that's the other thing too. Like, you can't be dumb. Like, if you notice, like there's the quarterbacks are very intelligent. They say that the quarterback book that they get is like a doctor. It's like getting an MD. The smart ones process it, and they're sponges. And I think when you have somebody like that, but I was very, I got to open, I opened for guys like Dave Attell. I opened for guys like Bill Burr in certain venues. I remember you learn things. You see how people maneuver. I opened in Vegas for Jim Brewer. So I was fortunate enough when I saw these guys, to get into big venues early and to kind of see. So even though I wasn't the guy, I was the guy with the clipboard, and I would go and do my job well for the 15, 20 minutes, but then I would see like, how it really was. So that's actually, now that we're talking about like the backup quarterback into the starter, I feel like that's actually a really good analogy, because that's kind of what it was,
Let's talk a little bit about your current quarterbacks. You are a New York Giants football fan. Oof. Daniel Jones. That era
Trey, we were
officially
over.
We
were having so much fun. We're having so much fun. We're sitting here having good talk about comedy, and now all of a sudden I'm talking about my 2-8 New York football Giants. Look, I feel, this is what I really feel in all seriousness. I feel like Daniel Jones got ruined by the Giants.
I completely agree with that.
There was something that clicked with him the year that he turned it on, and I know it wasn't huge, but I was at that London game. We beat Aaron Rodgers and the Packers when he was still Aaron Rodgers in London. We end up going 9-8 that year. We go into a 13-win hostile environment in Minnesota. Kirk Cousins was having an unbelievable year. We go in. Daniel Jones is like almost perfect. Like it was as good of a performance in the playoffs, and then he gets the big contract, and I'm going, this is it. And then I don't listen. You never want to blame a lineman for getting hurt for your quarterback, but something happened to that kid where he, this year, happy feet. I don't know if it was the neck injury. I don't know if it was the leg. I don't know what happened to him. I think our lack of a line, and I think that because last year was hard to watch. That kid did not have, and I'm not trying to make excuses for him because I will say now, it took me a long time to say he's not the guy. After 6 years, it's time to move on. I can finally put my hands up and admit that. But I was a Daniel Jones guy, and when I saw him not even have 2.5 seconds with a guy just jumping on his back, I'm talking about he would snap the Saquon did all he could to block for him. They were in the backfield in no time, Trey. In no time. And then he gets hurt, and the neck injury, I think it ruined him. I think it scared him. He makes awful decisions this year, leaving people wide open, and I just think it's time to go. It hurts to say, but usually if a guy goes 9-8, gets to the playoffs, and then wins a playoff road game, you're like, oh, something clicked, right? And then no. So I think that the year
Daboll too, by the way, and I realize the head coach's fortunes are tied to how good or bad his quarterback is, but Daboll looked like the next big thing in the NFL coaching ranks 2 years ago.
The most positive thing you could say about Daboll now is he lost weight. That's the only thing that I said. I'm like, all right, God, this guy's getting his shit together, but we got to get together on the field. So now I do think it's time, whatever it is, whether it's Andrew Thomas getting hurt and then him getting hurt, whether it's him being sacked, whether it's him just not, maybe he's getting booed at home, can't help. Getting heckled when you leave your own stadium can't help. Maybe all the things that happened to the kid. Again, he's been very professional. He's still in the building. He didn't leave. I think it's time to go. I think the New York Giants go get a Cam Ward, or go get a the Sanders thing. I kind of, that could be a little bit of a circus. Deion's son coming here could be a little. Plus, they're saying Deion may get a job. It could be a Cowboy job, which would be wild.
Yeah,
could be or maybe even the Jets job, which could be wild. And so I don't know if him, either competing against the New York or it being in a division rival. But I don't know if the Shador Sanders would be a Mara Giants move, because this Cam Ward kid in Miami, he's got this calm about him. He flicks his wrist, the ball goes 70 yards, and he kind of reminds me of a more athletic, stronger Roethlisberger.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, if you watch, Ben was obviously a little slower, still quick on his feet. Ben would get out of trouble if you remember.
Maybe the most underrated pocket presence in the history of the quarterback position.
He would pull some Houdini shit, and he was a giant kid. They said he was a kid, he was that size in high school. But Ben Roethlisberger, you'd be like, oh, this is a big, slow white guy. Mm-hmm. And he was elusive. This guy, Cam Ward, watch him. He's like a kind of a better version as far as athletic. Now, listen, Ben did what is his thing. So I don't want to put the cart for, I'm not trying to do the golf thing you were saying with Tiger. But I think the Giants need to go get a franchise quarterback, a young kid. And now you got Malik Neighbors. And our defense is not bad. Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah.
We got that kid Phillips in the backfield, who's one of the best rookies.
What happened to Thibodeau this year? I feel like he's hurt or something.
He's back this week.
Okay.
But Thibodeau was out. Yeah, so our defensive line, Brian Burns is great. So the Giants were there. And then after 3 weeks, I'm like, oh, we almost beat, the first 5 weeks, we lost by one possession. And then Jones just missing people. And so it was a lost season, but it could be a blessing if we get the right quarterback,
So let me ask you this then, because Sanders and Ward are two completely different styles. Sanders is flashier.
Yeah.
Ward is maybe a little bit more stoic. Ultimately, the answer is whoever's finding more success on the field, but which style works more in New York, considering the glitz and glam? Somebody who does have that flash or somebody who's more reserved?
I think it's not so much a New York thing. I think it's NFL professional thing. I do. I think like the New York thing will go away once they settle into their home and they're, but look at a perfect example is if you look at a guy like Jaden Daniels, right? And with the Commanders, he's a calm kid. He's not a flashy kid. He's having an unbelievable first year. Like it's very rare. Roethlisberger did too. If you remember, Roethlisberger just started like 13-1. It was nuts. I think this kid Ward and my son, my 15-year-old sends me clips. He knows more than me. I think this kid Ward has a nonchalantness about him, not in a bad way, in like almost like an Eli had a nonchalant. Like Eli was like, oh shucks. Archie Manning said, he's like, when he was talking, he goes, my two boys are different. He goes, Peyton listened to the radio and read the paper. He goes, Eli would throw 3 picks and go home and watch a movie with his kids, water off a duck's back, and I think that made him play better in the playoffs because he was just like, yeah, I'm just going to do it. From what I've seen, Cam Ward seems like this nonchalant kind of everything's going to be okay, kind of like a pilot in the airplane, like telling you the temperature and the wind. Shador, because he maybe get caught up in New York too. Like maybe the flashiness and the going out and maybe the running around is not, as, who knows? I mean, I don't think the New York thing's going to matter. Like I said, I think it's a professional thing, but, from what I've seen with Cam Ward, I don't know if you watch the highlights, but, look, would I be happy with either? Yes. Right now, I think a young, exciting quarterback that's going to put a franchise on his back and has a decent defense and Malik Neighbors, I'll be happy with either.
Yeah, I loved Cam Ward with Washington State last year. He just had nothing around him, though, so his season was over as soon as conference play started. But him with Miami now, with all the NIL money they're spending to get good pieces around him, still question whether Mario Cristobal can be the guy to lead a program to a national championship, but Cam Ward gives them a great shot. Big fan of Cam Ward. You just mentioned your 15-year-old son. You and I both have 2 kids. You're a little bit further down the timeline. Yours are 15 and 12-year-old daughter as well.
Yes, sir.
What do you love about parenting?
Everything. Changed me as a person. Really changed me as a human being. Made me understand life a lot better. Made me grow up quicker. Made me understand stupid decisions that I had made in the past. Humbled me. Every positive thing that you can say about having children, it did for me. And, no matter what's going on, I remember years ago, Alex Rodriguez was on the Yankees and he had like a new daughter and he's like, sometimes I just don't want to come to the ballpark. I just want to hang with her. And I really feel like that, I'll kiss my kids and go, hey, dad's going on a quick run here. But next week we're going to do something I don't let days of the week change anything. We'll go out to dinner on Monday night. We'll go to a sushi dinner on Monday night like it's a Saturday. I took my daughter and her friend to the movies on a weeknight. I'd be like, get your homework done, but we're going to do things. Just spending time with them, being with them.
Well, especially because your job takes you away on the weekends. It's more important to squeeze that in during the week.
Yeah, the weird thing, though, is that my son now, because he's a basketball player, my son and my daughter is almost my wife's size. My wife's little, though. My wife's like 5'1". And my son, I'm 5'8". My son is like almost 5'10", but I still hug and kiss him on the head. So it looks just like this weird, his arms are big and lanky. So it's like he hugs me like I'm his kid. And I'm like, I love you so much. People are probably like, dude, what? Enough. If I could lift him up still, I would.
Oh, look at that wiry man and his special needs son.
Yeah, it looks like a weird thing, but no, I'm making a point. I tell him I love him all the time, and I hug him, and every night I gotta kiss him goodnight and stuff. Yeah. It's just it's everything, man. Yeah. It's really being a dad, and I don't mean to shit on people that don't, but I really don't understand people that are if you don't want children, that's fine. If you're like, you know what? Because I actually respect people that are like, I'm too selfish. I got a friend. He goes, I'm too selfish. I wouldn't be a good parent. I'm like, you know what? Good for you. You shouldn't be. But the people that are adamant, people that are kids, ugh, no. And I'm just like, oh, something happened to you.
Yeah.
Something happened to you.
Yeah, you don't need to demean me because of the decisions that I'm making or because I'm choosing to spend time at my kids' youth sports events or I'm volunteer coaching on the weekends or something. We all choose our own paths. I respect the path that you've chosen. You're going to be lonely in a couple of decades when it's still just you and you don't have that sense of purpose. But it's your decision to make. You don't need to try and make me feel bad because you're questioning whether you're making the right choice.
Yeah, is going out and drinking wine and doing all those things every night going to be worth it when you're 7 70 at home going like, oh, I got nobody to, my legacy's not going on. I got nothing, but hey, to each his own. I'm not hating. I just don't like when people hate because they almost get mad when you're like, oh, this is the greatest thing to happen to me was my kids. They're almost like, what? What are you, and it's like, don't be mad.
Yeah.
I'm not, maybe the greatest thing that happened to you is you're in a book club. That's not my problem. That's not
Depends on the book, I guess.
No offense to people with books, but that are into book clubs.
So that's what you love about parenting. That was a great answer. What do you think the biggest challenge is for parents in 2024?
Yeah, I think right now, just like kind of not letting the media get in your kid's head. I think the media is horrible. I think on both sides, this is not a political thing. I think like letting your kids know that like the media is very biased. Okay.
They're profiting on selling hate too.
What's that?
They're profiting on selling hate too. Hate the other side.
Yeah. Hate the other side. And like there's like this propaganda, this agenda of like, it's all propaganda, but it's like this agenda of like, half the country needs to hate the other half the country. And what people don't understand is it's, divided we fall, united we stand, right? And people forget that. We're all America. This is America. We're in one country. It's one country, one leader. Whether you like that leader or not, that's going to change in 4 years, and it's going to change in 4 years again. But what doesn't change is it's one country, and we, the people, have to kind of keep this beautiful thing going of freedom and all that. So I tell my kids, don't listen to media. Don't be brainwashed. Go with your gut. Talk to us. We're never going to brainwash you into like, talk. Like I tell my kids, I'm like, you could, watch and for yourself and tell me what you think. And they're very smart, well-spoken and open-minded kids. But yeah, advice I would say is do not let your kids buy into any kind of, and you said a good point there too, Trey. Like don't buy into any of the hate and don't buy into anything that they're pushing. Anytime media is pushing something, that's a narrative and there's a reason. So just telling my kids that it's not always what it seems.
And don't scan that QR code. I promise you it's not worth it. They're just getting your information. My kids are always like, Dad, scan that QR code. I'm like, no, I don't want to give them any more information than they already have, kids. Yeah. And they badger me until I do.
Except the sticker I'm giving out at my shows for my special.
Yeah, that's the exception there.
Yeah, that's a code you can.
So you are a part of a couple of really entertaining podcasts, The Virzi Effect, and also Bone to Pick with
Bobby Kelly,
acquaintance of the show, Bobby Kelly. He's been on 2 times, 3 times gets you friendship.
Okay.
Love the concept of Bone to Pick. It's nitpicks, essentially. It's things that you're encountering in your day-to-day life that you guys talk about and have fun with. Have you acquired any new bones in the short amount of time that you've been in Austin during this trip?
Yeah. I do. I get bones a lot at airports and when I fly.
Airports and grocery stores are really good for that.
Airports and grocery stores are good for a bone. Just like the new one I got is just like the inconsistency of the TSA. So like we flew last week, we flew to North Carolina to my cousin's wedding. Mm-hmm. And my wife, they go, you don't need to put your shoes in the bin and you don't need to put your backpack in the bin. You could just put it on the table and slide it down. So my wife goes, what if I just put my sneakers on top of my book bag? And the lady goes, oh, that's perfect, actually. My wife looks and smiles and she's like, see, that's perfect. So then I, like a dick, this time to Austin, I take off my Air Force Ones and I go, hey, I'm going to put them on my book bag. And she just goes, no. She goes, no, just put them separately. Just put your shoe. And I'm going like, so it's like, be consistent. And you know what? It was the same belt. It was the same. We were at the same thing. We were at the same, and it was just a different TSA person trying to be a dick with their authority. All it is. And the cool ones are amazing. The cool ones are like, it's fine. Or like, I'll go, oh, sorry, I kept my watch on. By the way, I always keep my watch on. Here's a trick. Always keep your watch and always keep your belt on. They're not going to say anything. They tell you to take it off. You don't have
to.
Yeah. Always.
It doesn't set off the, okay.
No. My watch and belt stay on the entire time. And sometimes they'll go, hey, do you have, take the belt. Now a dick will go take the belt off and go back and do it. Somebody else, once you're through and they see it, they'll be like, go ahead. But yeah, just the inconsistency of the TSA. Be consistent. My wife was perfect. And I'm the asshole doing the same exact thing. But it's funny because how Bone to Pick came about is me and Bobby, he would either do the Virzi Effect or I would do YKWD, his podcast. You know what, dude? And we would get there and I'd sit down or he'd sit down on mine and I would just be like, dude, before we get started, can I just I got a bone to pick with you. And he would go, what, dude? What the fuck? And I would go, he would, what the fuck, dude? I got a, and Bobby, he goes, well, I got a bone to pick with you. and we would go back and forth. So for 8 or 9 years, I would go on the road and perform, and people would go, dude, you and Bobby Kelly together, either podcast, you guys got to do something. And he would hear the same thing. I'm talking 9 years. And I was in Syracuse performing in the Funny Bone in the fucking mall. And they were going, you and Bobby Kelly got to do this, you and Bobby Kelly. So one year I call him up and I go, do you want to do something? Yeah, we're going to do something. And a year goes by. And then you want to do something? Then he talked, yeah, we got to do something. But we got to figure it out. And then all of a sudden we just talked. And it was like, all right, enough is enough. We have too many videos going viral. We have too many fans on both sides saying we got to do something. And I always say I got a bone to pick with you. You said this, and here we are now, almost 2 years or whatever. And it's going great. And we have a lot of fun with it. And the fans, that's what it is. Yeah. We're like, it's like a therapy. These people are like, thank you. They send in their video bones and they'll just vent, and it's helping people. We always say we're helping the world one bone at a time. So
that's a great saying there. All right. I've got a bone that I need to share with you now.
Sure.
A bone to pick with, I feel like it's most hipsters in their early 30s who are operating on a sense of entitlement. You talked about airports. I've got a story from the grocery store from a couple weeks back.
Okay.
Making an early Sunday run through the grocery store before the weekend crowd really hits. Get through in reasonable time, get to the front where the checkout is, and I've got too many items to go through the 10 to 15 item self-checkout. So I find a line. It's the one of 4 lines. It only has one person in front of me. As I'm getting into this line, about to load my stuff onto the conveyor belt, I see a full cart that's next to me. It's not in line. It's kind of in between the 2 lines. So I'm like, oh, somebody must have forgotten something in the grocery store. They're going back to get it. I'm glad that they're not pulling the dick thing and loading some items onto the conveyor belt and then going back into the grocery store. You're still shopping at that point. You shouldn't be in the line. So I start to load items onto the conveyor belt, and I'm about 4 or 5 items out of my cart onto the conveyor belt. And somebody walks up, early 30s, bearded hipster. He's got the horn-rimmed glasses and everything. He says, excuse me, I was in line, but I just stepped away to go to the bathroom.
So you weren't in line?
And that was my response was, well, it sounds like you weren't in line. You were actually in the bathroom, and your cart is just sitting right there. And so I continue unloading stuff onto the conveyor belt, and he says, are you going to honor my spot in line? And this is a very Larry David moment for me. I said, well, I would honor your spot in line if you were in line, but you weren't in line. You were in the bathroom, and your cart was right there. And I didn't really have any interactions with him after that. I could feel him staring daggers at me, but I just didn't care to get into anything more with this dipshit for his poor logic with this situation.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to say to him, and what I probably should have said, or I could have said if I wanted to escalate things more, is you had a couple of decisions here. You could have either chosen to be an adult and hold it for 5 minutes until you got through the line and then go to the bathroom with the receipt and with your groceries in a bag, and that way you could go to the bathroom and then wheel out no problem, or pull your cart over to the bathroom and just do it like that. You tried to choose both options to stay in line and go use the bathroom, and unfortunately, you ended up behind somebody who wasn't going to deal with your bullshit.
Oh my God. First of all, if you would have said that, I would have, that might be the greatest comeback answer of all time. If you would have said, I get why you didn't. Who needs that? Are you military, ex-military or anything?
No.
No, okay, because that would seem like some general shit. I think that you did the exact right thing. I would have been too nice of a dickhead, and I probably would have been like, did he have a lot of shit or no?
Yeah, it was probably 20, 25 items.
Yeah, I probably would have been like, oh shit, I don't know. And I probably would have let him. What you did was 1,000% right. And it's like, here's the deal. You forfeited your spot.
Right.
But what you did like a selfish asshole is you left your thing there in case it's a completely selfish thing. You actually made the universe right that day.
Exactly. I'm tired of the entitlement. The entitlement has to be completely over with.
It was absolutely entitlement. You did the right thing, and you righted a wrong, which was fantastic. So good on you, man. I love that bone, and I don't think it could be better.
Thank you. I'm glad to get the acknowledgement of somebody who literally has a show called Bone to Pick.
And I feel
better about it.
And I will tell you this, that's our show. Like what you just did is our show. It's perfect, and the fans like you who actually have bones like that make the show.
Awesome. All right, last question now, Paul.
Yes.
I love stand-up. You love stand-up. What do you love about stand-up comedy?
Oh man, the short answer is, I guess, the freedom to be me in the moment. The freedom to be me right then and there. Whatever I'm thinking, whatever I'm feeling. Man, I wish I got to remember that. I might text you because it's a beautiful thing. It's like last night I was at Rogan's Spot the Mothership, and I was on stage, and I was just doing new jokes that I never did before. Just because I'm just reacting to things, people are reacting to things. This big election happened, all these people have these things, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to talk about some things that are on my mind. And I've honed the skills over these years, and I've been blessed and hopefully continue to, knock on wood, that I have the ability to think about it on the spot and just say some things, and some things I just come up with. And then while I'm talking about it, I'm writing more on stage. So that's what it is. It's just this freedom to just say what you feel. There's no other job where you can kind of fuck around like that. If you're a heart surgeon, you know where the valves are. And when you're doing bypass surgery, you got to stay to that. Right? But when you do stand up, I could say whatever. I could be on my way. Like what happened with you in the supermarket and that dickhead with the cart. You can go on stage and say your answer, say your second answer that you wanted to say, and get an applause break because you could make it funny going, no, Dick, you lost both of those options, and do that, and people are going to go, oh my God, yeah. That's what I love about stand up. It's on the spot, it's free, it's you in that moment.
Great answer. He is Paul Virzi. Make sure to check him out through his website, paulvirzi.com. The new special is Reasonable Man. It is available on YouTube through Paul's channel. Also, 2 really funny podcasts, The Virzi Effect and also Bone to Pick, co-hosted by Bobby Kelly. Paul, this has been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for the time today,
Thank you for having me. I had a great time, dude. Really appreciate it.